Hello and welcome back to The Movies Made Us Do It. Me and Matt are back. How are you, Matt?
I'm pretty good, sir. How are you?
I am all right. Yes, doing pretty good. It's going to be an interesting one. This.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. Well, you know, my pet hate currently is multiverse movies. Everything Everywhere All at Once notwithstanding, that was a fantastic film. I am tired. I have never really liked multiverse stuff. Never liked it in comics, never liked it in movies. It just annoys me. It's usually a cop-out for bad writing. If you're going to do a story around it, then it better be good. Everything Everywhere, tremendous. Generally, though, I do not like multiverse stories. And today I have watched two films, and they are both multiverse stories. So we shall see.
I've always been a relatively big fan of multiverses.
Yeah,
mainly because I'm a big Moorcock fan, and pretty much all of his books kind of exist around each other because, most of his characters are all aspects of the Eternal Champion.
Yeah, I think if it's well written, it can work.
Yeah, and I like a lot of the.
I think it's more
I love a lot of Elseworld stories from DC.
I don't mind what if this happened. But when you've got an existing universe and you're like, oh, but now here's a multiverse, it's like, oh, fucking hell, you've run out of ideas, haven't you? Or oh, fucking hell, you've killed off too many characters and now you want to bring them back. So here's the multiverse.
That seems to be the main one, isn't it? It's like, oh, what if we brought this character back? Oh, okay, he's from different universes. Oh, okay.
But anyway, we'll see how we got on. Anyway, do you want to kick us?
Should we start with the big one then?
All right. I'm assuming the big one is the one we've both seen.
Yeah.
So, Spider-Man. I have to be careful. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. These names are too similar. It's like No Way Home and No Longer Home and I don't know, Homecoming. Why do they do this with Spider-Man movies?
I don't know.
Although Batman's just as bad, which is anyway. So following on from Into the Spider-Verse, 5 years later, it's a long wait, and I had forgotten pretty much everything that happened in the first movie, if I'm honest with you. Now, I loved the first movie. I had a really good time with it. It was just a long time ago, and I was kind of, getting bored of superhero stuff at that point anyway. So I was kind of tuned out for most of it. But
it was nice because it wasn't really part of the rest of the stuff.
So it came along and it was a breath of fresh air. I loved the animation style. I thought the writing was really witty and really clever. Had a nice heart to it.
Great performances as well.
Sorry?
Great performances as well.
Fantastic. So, this is one of those movies where I'm like, well, I don't really care for superhero movies as they stand these days. However, if it's a sequel to a movie I really liked, I want to check it out. So, of course, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is now released 5 years later. And I was like, well, I need to quickly reread the Wikipedia on the first movie to remind myself of where we are. And off we go. So, we start on, oddly enough, Earth 65 with Captain George Stacy. And we are kind of following for the first, 20 minutes of the movie, Gwen Stacy as Spider-Woman.
And I actually quite like the sort of the pastels sort of style universe for her.
I will say, I think the art style for this series of movies continues to be some of the best. I mean, I'm not a fan of CGI animation. This stuff is gorgeous.
It is.
It's amazing. I absolutely love the art style and the way they've implemented the CG animation in these films. It looks amazing.
There's a lot of annoying flashes at the very beginning that went on too long.
What?
In the very beginning of the movie, there was a lot of sort of flashy sort of stuff that was a bit like, okay, you can probably stop this now. This is going on.
Oh, okay, yeah, with you. So anyway, we're following Gwen Stacy as Spider-Woman for the early part of the movie. We learn this may have been in the first movie, can't remember. We learn that she caused the death of Peter Parker in her world. Because in that universe, Peter Parker became the Lizard. He was getting bullied at school, wanted to be special, and we discover wanted to be special like Spider-Woman, so he ended up doing science. And
I actually really liked that.
I thought it was amazing. I was like, that is a really good storyline in this other world. You know, Peter...
that one as well makes sense, because if he was still working, that Peter might have been working with, I can't remember what
Connors?
Is it Connors? Yes. Connors.
My Marvel brain still functions. It's still there somewhere.
He was still working with Doc Connors and was, you know, more into that sort of stuff. And why not? That's quite pretty cool.
Loved it. But then, you know, she weirdly gets attacked by a Renaissance version of the Vulture.
Which I thought was fucking awesome as well.
Again, wonderful. And this kind of starts things off, and then we realise that in the intervening years, I'm not sure how long it's been. I think it's been like a year or something. I think
it's only within movie. It's not very. I don't think very long at all.
Yeah, and basically in that time, Gwen has been a part of the Multiverse Spider-Man agency, which has like 4 billion Spider-Men in it. Apart from Miles Morales. They're all in there apart from Miles. And they're basically, you know, all working together across the multiverse to fix problems, basically.
I presume there are other ones that aren't, but...
Yes, for the purposes of this story...
why he isn't.
Yes. For the purposes of this story, Miles Morales is the one that isn't. Yeah. But of course, she makes the fatal mistake of... I won't go into any spoilers beyond this, but she makes the fatal mistake of visiting Miles.
Yeah.
Because, you know, there's some tension. I guess, you know, love is in the air between the two of them.
I think we can also sort of say, that's not really spoiling anything, that there's an incident to do with the villain, the Spot.
Yes, who is he? Is he a Marvel thing, or is this just?
He is, okay. Yeah, and I think I'm pretty sure he actually did start as a joke. I think he was a joke.
Well, he is a joke in this. I was going to say, is he taken any more seriously in the movie? Now, this film does. I would say this film does hint that in subsequent movies he might become less funny and more of an actual threat.
I think by the end he kind of is.
Yeah. But yes, meanwhile, Miles Morales is attacked by the Spot in a shop. I think he's going shopping. No, he's not. He's just fighting crime, isn't he? He just happens to be there, and they end up having a fight. And it's all very humorous. The Spot kicks his own ass, which I did laugh at, to be honest. I thought it was funny.
It was funny. And I mean, again, not spoiling anything. I think it's safe. It's safe to say that the Spot considers Miles his arch nemesis, because, like a lot of these sorts of villains, he created him. And I think he is further infuriated that during the accident that effectively created Spider-Man of this universe, Miles Morales, shortly after that was basically that same day, because of Miles Morales, the Spot became the Spot. He was like infused with portals or some nonsense from this collider exploding. So I think he's further infuriated by the fact that Miles just sees him as a joke. Yeah, because he's like, you've ruined my life, and I am your arch nemesis. But Miles is like, you're just a weird dude. You know, he was him like a minor villain, doesn't he? Basically, pretty much. Which I'm guessing, minor villain, not even really worth bothering with. No, and I'm guessing he may live to regret that ultimately. But yes, I think he certainly will. But in any case, Gwen travels to his Earth and meets him secretly. We learn that Gwen was meant to be tracking the Spot and keeping an eye on the Spot, and he's disappeared, which is concerning. As a result of this, it's kind of made clear to all the other Spider-Men that she has basically contacted Miles, and they bring Miles to the Spider interdimensional base. I don't know what the hell it was called. The Spider Police. Is it on Spider-Man 2099's? It might be, yeah, because he's kind of a villain of this. New York, I think it is. Yeah. I like. I haven't read. I didn't read the whole story, but I did have the Spider-Man 2099. Right. And I certainly don't remember him being a vampire, but sure. Mm-hmm. I mean, he did have fangs and he had poisoned bite,
right,
claws, but that doesn't really make you a vampire. Anyway, that's just a small side. But I remember quite enjoying the Spider-Man 2099 stuff and the Doom one as well, the Doom 2099.
Yeah,
it's quite cool.
I don't think I've read either, but so in any case, plot continues from here. It includes arguably too many Spider-Men.
Yes.
However, I don't know what your thoughts are on this film. I really enjoyed this, to be honest. I really enjoyed this for the most part. Have a few issues, but not many. I genuinely enjoyed it.
Very frustrating.
Did you?
I did, because I think it's almost like two halves. Half of me was like, I love this because I love the interactions. I love the main characters.
I thought the motivations were pretty well.
I like Gwen.
Yeah, I love the characters.
I like his parents.
Yeah.
A lot of the other Spider-Men I found insufferable.
I kind of assumed that was somewhat intentional. Particularly with the end that we get, because the end is basically like, I'm getting the team back together, like it was like, okay, we're, so I don't know. I don't know if that's intentional or not. But there was some really good dialogue between sort of Miles and his family and stuff, and Miles and Gwen, and then there was just some horrendous dialogue between, Miles and Miguel and the awful punk Spider-Man and the terrible Spider-Woman. I thought that was intentional.
Motorbike pregnant. Fine, okay, Spider-Woman.
Oh yes, but well, there's a lot of putting children in danger in this film.
Oh god, what the fuck was that about as well?
That was one of my things. I was like, this Spider-Woman is pregnant whilst fighting crime.
Yeah.
This Spider-Man is taking his child while fighting crime. I'm like, what are you doing? And we've established there are 5 billion Spider-Men that you could use instead of you. Maybe have your child first.
Yeah.
And then continue.
Or and also, you have a literal baby. It's not really even a toddler yet, and it's clearly inherited your powers. And
but it's still a child, though.
And you make it a web slinger. Are you fucking mental?
And it's still a child, though. Like, it's
that's what I said. It's not a toddler. It's not even a toddler. It's a baby.
It's a baby, and like you said, it has inherited Peter Parker's powers, right?
Mm-hmm.
At least a portion of them genetically.
Yeah.
But that does not excuse putting her in harm's way the way that he does. Like, it's like, whoa, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And there's a point at the end, which is I guess is a small spoiler, where Peter has a discussion with his wife about the baby, and he's like, oh no, I didn't. She's like, did you put the baby in harm's way? He's like, no, of course not, you told me not to do that, so I didn't do that. And it's kind of played for laughs, and I was like, okay, that's kind of fun. Yeah. And then it's clear that Peter Parker needs to get involved in the wider plot, and he gets the baby, and I'm like, he's gonna leave the baby with the wife, do the right thing. And he's like, just don't tell her, and brings him along. And I'm like, what? Why did you bring her along? What are you doing? Like, you've learned nothing.
The baby puts the mask on, and you're like, Are you sure? Are you really serious? You're gonna do this?
Yeah.
No.
So this is one of the things I was like, the babies thing, and as much as I liked the dialogue, I did think it was a bit repetitious in places. Some of the themes just continued a bit too long, I think. But
and I think there's the big chunk of the storyline as well. Slightly annoys me, because it's that thing they're doing as that sort of what they've kind of done to Doctor Who, and they've it's like now all Spider-Men are the most important people in the universe.
But yeah, it turns out they are like above any. Well, of course, bearing in mind, we do need to bear in mind, Matt, this is a Sony production.
Yes.
So they can't have Iron Man floating around or Thor or it's like we are Spider-Man centric here. So I kind of can forgive them for that, because it is kind of like, well, they don't have that many options.
I understand that, but then
you can't have fucking Morbius. No one gives a shit anymore.
Added things like, but you have canon events.
Well, that was very Doctor Who.
Oh, yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. It's like, oh, you've got canon events.
It's like fixed points in time.
Yeah. And the idea that if those don't happen, you will unravel that universe was a bit... well, then nobody in those universes are important at all. No. Nobody matters in those universes but the Spider-Man.
Well, I guess the argument is that if you stopped any canon event in a universe, whether it involves Spider-Man or not, you would destroy the universe. I always have issues with these things anyway, because I'm like, well, then how do you know what is a canon event and what isn't, and how does that work?
Yeah.
Like, what dictates something becoming a, quote, canon event or a fixed point in time in Doctor Who? With Doctor Who, you can kind of let it go, because you're like, well, these are ancient beings that have studied time and, you know...
Yeah.
Or just kidnapped a girl and stole her power. I don't fucking know. But back in my day, they were ancient beings that had, you know, were part of time. They'd absorbed time. They you know, they'd studied it and understood
manipulation with the Time Lords as well. You know, they
knew what they could get away with and what they couldn't. So what they called a fixed point was basically like, if you do this, I can't fix it. It's fucked.
Yes.
But here you're like, how do these fucking Spider-Men know?
Yeah,
what's a canon event and what's not? But I was kind of okay with it, to be honest, for the sake of the plot and for the fact that this is not a Disney Marvel thing. It's a Sony thing. They were very limited in what they could do, so I was like, okay, you know. But I see your point. I get your point though, because I kind of agree. But
I mean, that's why I think that's what was frustrating for me. It was for me, it was like almost like a film of two halves for me.
Yeah.
These really good sort of lovely little family moments and really good character development moments. And then there was these really bad dialogues and really weird spatial things. And it was like, oh, okay, fine.
I think the good outweighed the bad for me, I would say. I really enjoyed this.
I think I agree, yes. I think I definitely enjoyed it. And I will assuredly watch the third one.
Well, this ends on a very big cliffhanger.
I do, you know... Yeah. I like where Miles ended up. I mean, you could see it coming from orbit. It was, you know, it's like they set it, they do that sort of, let's set this up for stupid Americans. And that's not
succeeded.
That's not me calling Americans stupid. That's just the way that certain movies.
I think that's the way that Hollywood sees.
Yes,
Americans.
exactly.
Not necessarily how we see them.
Here you go. Here's some clues. And you're not going to get it from the clues we've seeded, so I'm going to tell you exactly what's happening. It's like, no. We know what we get it.
We're intelligent, yeah.
I'm sure most of America get it. They're not that stupid, really.
I do like the idea overall. I like the consequences of what has happened and how that plays out in another universe. And I liked seeing the result of that.
Yes.
I must admit, the cliffhanger is great. I was like, oh, and then when she gets the gang back together, I was like, okay, I really do want to see the sequel. So I mean,
maybe because I want to see Spider-Man Noir again.
I know, I just want to see Nick Cage again. I just want Nick Cage back.
I just want to see Nick Cage again. I liked Penny's upgrade as well. The new mech suit was very cool.
Yeah. I liked, I don't know if you're going to agree with me, I kind of liked the live action people and the Lego as well. I kind of, as like a little aside, I find it quite funny, and I was like, oh, that's quite funny actually. I quite like that.
If you're going to include every universe, you kind of have to, don't you?
They did mention Doc Strange in this, by the way.
They did, yeah.
Which is a character they don't own the rights to, but they did, you know, they were like, oh, okay.
Well, I think the thing is that this, even though this,
they can mention, I guess,
they're still connected to those.
Yeah, events. I don't know where the rights end. I guess the rights would probably end at like, well, you can't have Doc Strange turn up, but if you mention him, we're not going to sue you because we do have this deal, you know.
Just mention him.
But I liked it, and I was like, oh, is that like a reference to the Marvel Cinematic Universe? It might be. I don't know. But yeah, I liked the little cameos. The Lego one made me laugh, actually. I was like, oh, awesome. They actually did a Lego Spider-Man. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I must admit, that was quite funny. And, you know, some of the stuff in the background was funny. There was, you know, the spider Tyrannosaurus and Spider-Cat and Spider-Car. It's like, yeah, of course.
They really played with how ludicrous the whole thing was, yeah. And I liked that.
Spider-Ham, for God's sake. So
I liked when they were like, at one point, for reasons, they're like, we need to catch Miles Morales. So the fucking idiot says, like, you need to stop Spider-Man. And a million Spider-Men all start pointing at each other. And it's like, no, Miles Morales.
You could see the joke coming a mile off.
It was funny, though. It still made me laugh.
It was funny. Yeah, exactly. It did make me laugh. I mean, I kind of hated and liked the what's his name? It's the clone one. How sort of emo the clone one was, is like really broody and like talking about how everything was like dark and, and miserable. Is like, that was actually quite fun.
Yeah.
So I did, like I said, I did enjoy it. I did find it also frustrating at times. But I'll definitely watch the second one, and I would kind of recommend it. I think it's nowhere near as good as the first one. I think the first one was a genuine work of art. It was
I will agree. I think I enjoyed this more than you did. I will say it's definitely not better than the first one. The first one was far and away better than this one. It was a tighter script. Because this film is long, actually.
Yes, it was long.
Maybe a little too long, if I'm honest. The first one was a really tight, solid script, great acting, great art direction, everything. This film has most of that, but it does have some annoyances and it's a bit too long, and and everything that we've just discussed. But yeah, I enjoyed it. And
there's still a few fucking digs that annoyed me with the Indian Spider-Man stuff. It's like, gotta get some digs in at the British. It's like, fuck's sake.
I never read Indian Spider-Man because I know that was a character.
I haven't either, but they do a whole thing about that this is the museums where all of our stuff that the British stole, and it's like,
well, because there is a British Spider-Man in it as well, so
yes,
I guess that's playing off each other, but yes, it's as I said, I haven't read that much Spider-Man, if I'm honest. My I read a bit as a kid, and then
I read quite a lot as a kid, and I
loved the 60s cartoon, and I loved the 90s cartoon, so that's most of my knowledge. So I always remember, I always think whenever these things come around, I'm always like, it's going to be Madam Web, because that's my knowledge of the multiverse with Spider-Man is from 90s cartoon Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Was it Madam Web?
It was a movie coming up, haven't they?
Oh, have they? Okay. Well, there we
go.
Yeah,
it's what's her name? Dakota. The one that was in Grey, Shades Grey.
I don't know.
Well, she's playing. They've made her a lot younger, and which I think they've done in the comics anyway. But
because she was old.
It's
old
not
lady.
going to be it's not going to be the Madam Web that you remember. Let's put it that way.
Nothing is what I remember.
No.
Anymore. It's all gone to shit.
I mean, I used to love Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. That was great.
Well, see, that was the later series. So I was a big fan of the 66 Spider-Man. 66? Fucking hell. Sorry, I'm getting Spider-Man, Batman in my head. I was a big fan of 60 Spider-Man, the animated Spider-Man. Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, I think, came after that. And I've seen some of it, because that's when he's friends with, Iceman
and Iceman.
Yeah, which is a weird combination.
Yeah.
It's that's a weird pairing of
it sort of works, though.
It does. No, it works. It did work.
Base that turns into it.
It was very
full base, and I used to love that stuff.
It was very.
And I read a lot when I was a kid, but one of my I never used to buy a lot of the Spider-Man. When I was a kid, I did, but when I was older, I didn't. But I did have a friend whose favorite hero is Spidey.
Sure.
So all the a lot of the big stories like Kraven's Last Hunt and all that stuff, I have read.
Mm-hmm.
In the last, 10 years, no, not so much. I haven't read any of the later stuff. I know there's some weird stuff they brought back. They changed Gwen Stacy, I think. They made her have an affair with Norman Osborn.
What? Isn't she a child?
I think they made her have a kid with Norman Osborn.
Hang on, but Norman Osborn... Norman's the old one, right? He's the Green Goblin.
Yes.
She's a child. Well, no, she's... Yeah, they're school kids, right?
I think they get to college, I think, don't they?
Okay, so now she's college age, so I guess she's legal, but it's still weird as
it's still
fuck.
weird and grubby and unpleasant. So yeah,
Okay, well, whatever. We're not reviewing the comic books, thank God.
No, we're not. And I'm not qualified to really either.
No.
About the newer stuff.
But anyway, I enjoyed this movie a lot. I think you enjoyed it less. I will agree with you entirely on your points. And I will say, as you said, not as good as the first one. I did very much enjoy it. I definitely recommend this one, and I will definitely be watching the sequel.
Yeah, I would too. I mean, for the performances of Jamaica Moore is his name.
He was great. Yeah, it's Miles. Yeah, I thought he was fantastic.
Stanfield is always good. She's a really great actress, and her performance as Gwen is brilliant. So yeah, I mean, it's Oscar Isaac is Miguel was half good, half infuriating. I don't know why. I just they sort of made him a villain, and I don't know why.
Yeah, see, the thing is, I've not read Spider-Man 2099, so I didn't care.
Yeah,
and I was like, maybe for all I knew, I was like, maybe he is a villain. I don't know. So I kind of went with it. I guess
he starts off as a selfish bastard,
right?
But he by the time he's Spider-Man, he's more of a hero. But that's again.
You kind of get the impression in this movie though that so he's basically been holding, or in his mind, he's been holding everything together.
Yeah,
so you kind of feel like maybe he's just. I feel like he will be good in the end, and that he's just kind of lost his mind because of the. He's basically been trying to, without spoiling it much, he's trying to hold the multiverse together, and Miles Morales is kind of ruining that. So
he's trying to stop sort of weird universal incursions.
Yeah.
And,
it's centered around Miles, and I'll leave it at that. So him being there annoys Spider-Man 2099 already.
Yeah.
And then obviously things, obviously as films do, they increase the stakes, and he gets more and more stressed. So I don't know whether it's that. I don't know. But anyway, enjoyable film.
Yeah.
So what else have you watched, Matt?
So I will go with Heart of Stone.
Heart of Stone, starring Gal Gadot.
Yeah, so I think it's Gal Gadot. I think you actually do pronounce that.
I have no idea. I think I've heard so many people say Gal Gadot that's what I say. So is it Gadot?
I think so.
Okay.
Either way.
It could go either way. I'll take your word for it, man.
We're talking about.
Yeah. Wonder Woman.
Yes, Wonder Woman. So this is Netflix's. I'm guessing it's their latest attempt at a franchise. So basically, you've got what was her character's name? Rachel Stone, who is working as a sort of a techie for the MI6, and at the start, she's got this team of people who are basically at this. I think they're in Switzerland, or Austria, any snowy mountainous ski place.
Uh-huh.
And they are trying to capture this dude. I forget what exactly he is. He's some sort of businessman, dodgy businessman, and I think they want to capture him to become an asset. And while they're there, not really spoiling anything, you discover that she is not a techie for the MI6. She's a plant. She is in fact a what the bloody hell do they call the organisation? I can't remember what the bloody call the organisation now. She's part of this organisation that works for the heart. So they're all cards. So she is the 9 of Hearts.
Okay.
And they are basically a shadowy organisation that work. Basically,
you can't be named after cards and not be assassins. I'm assuming that's.
No, they're not assassins.
They're not. Okay.
No, they are sort of spy. Okay. Make sure the world goes right, sort of people.
Sure.
So they are controlled by the heart, which is a computer AI thing, which is basically. Have you ever seen Person of Interest?
No.
you should see Person of Interest. It's a really good
series. I have heard that. Yes,
it's a really good series. Ever play Watch Dogs? Any of the Watch Dogs?
I have. I have played the first 2.
Okay, so it's that. It's this thing. It knows everything, reads people, makes basically it knows knows everybody better than they know themselves, sort of thing. So that basically it can see when events might happen and when people are going to do something bad or whatever, and this agency basically turns up and but it's all it's AI, it's dodgy, and obviously I'm not going to spoil stuff, but obviously there's a bad sort of agency as well that wants to take over the heart, because they don't think that these elites, they're in control of this thing, and they're not really. They could do some real good. I mean, sure, you're going to murder lots and lots of people when you take over, but that's fine. It's fine. It's the way that these things happen. So what then basically ensues is you get a sort of a cat and not spoiling anything, but you get a sort of a cat and mouse sort of trying to track down the heart and trying to sort of keep it out of bad hands and all that stuff. The cast is pretty good. You've got Jamie Dornan, what's that dude? Paul Reddy. You've got Sofia Canado. You've got that German dude, Matthias. I'm gonna fuck this up. Schweighofer, who was the guy from the Zack Snyder zombie movie, Army of the Dead.
Yeah.
Sir, I really liked Dieter. He was one of my favorite characters.
It was one of the better characters of that film. Yeah.
Yeah.
God, we got to talk about Zack Snyder later. I forgot. Yeah. Yes. Continue.
We will definitely talk about Zack Snyder later. So, right. Is it any good? I enjoyed it.
Cool. The trailer looked okay. Like I wasn't blown away.
It's obviously trying to be a sort of Mission Impossible-y, female Mission Impossible sort of person of interest type thing.
Which is cool.
Which is, I'm sure they spent lots of money on it. At times it looks...
It's Netflix. They definitely spent a lot of money.
Yeah, they definitely spent a lot of money on it. Sometimes some of the effects... Most of the time, they don't look too bad. It does look, it looks like they actually went to these places, which is always nice. It's a lot better. I must say, I've only ever seen bits and pieces of Lisbon. They show quite a bit of Lisbon. Lisbon's really pretty. If that's, I'm sure there are definitely awful places in Lisbon, like any other city. But what they show of Lisbon was really, really lovely, and quite a nice chase scene as well. The action, I think, for the most part, is really well done. It is nowhere near as good as any of those things it's trying to be. It is entertaining, though. Gal Gadot, with all the will in the world, is not the greatest actress. She is...
I agree.
Is, however, very charming, which helps.
She's fine. I mean, I see her as in the same way I see a lot of, actors that, like a Bruce Willis back in the day. It's like, well, he got to the point where it's like, well, he's good for 1 or 2 roles, and that's pretty much the roles you're going to cast him in. You want Bruce Willis character, then you insert Bruce Willis character, and it kind of feels that way with Gal. I'm not going to say her last name because I'm worried I'll get it wrong now. But Gal,
I don't think it doesn't matter.
She's pretty much the same, but you're right. She's charming, and the same as the Rock.
Yeah,
charming is all hell. Not very much range. That's
I mean,
charisma.
Rock's different for another reason, the fact that the dude's built like a tank. So he,
is that.
There's certain characters he's never gonna play because why would your mailman look like that?
Yeah,
that's probably are plenty of mailmen. That's probably a bad example. But anyway, the problem with her as a as well is that she looks so slight she's so skinny, and I know she's fit, and I know she was in the army and all that sort of stuff, but she doesn't have that sort of physical presence that blimey, Charlize Theron does in Atomic Blonde.
Oh, one of our favourites.
I mean, Charlize Theron looks like she could bash her face in.
Oh, she's like, I mean, in that movie, she both gets beat to hell and beats people to hell. She's believably badass in that movie.
Yes,
100%.
Gal Gadot, not quite so much. I mean, don't get me wrong. The scenes that she does are good. I don't know how much she did herself and how much. There's a lot of hair over the face, so I'm presuming she probably didn't do a lot of the fighting herself.
Sure. But even then, you're going to get obviously a body double that matches.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean,
it's not a Steven Seagal film, so
exactly. It's not really good if your body double is twice the size of you. But it was entertaining. There was some nice. Like I said, there were some genuinely good action pieces. The sort of, there's your usual double crossy tool stuff that you just see coming a mile off. So it's not anywhere near as good as what it's trying to sort of emulate, but it is entertaining. It is fun. The leads for the most part are actually fun to watch and believable enough.
Sure.
That they can get away with it. I don't know whether whether it was just in my head or whether she was slightly more muscular as Wonder Woman than she is in this.
She trained a lot for Wonder Woman. I know that much. I mean, I know at the time we were like, well, she's not really the physicality of Wonder Woman and that kind of physique that you'd expect from Wonder Woman. But she trained a lot for it, and she was very lean, wasn't she? She was like very lean muscle in that from memory, certainly in the first one anyway.
In I think Gal's a bit too skinny. There are bits where she's walking along and you think she's just going to snap if somebody hits her really hard. I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
And maybe that's just me, but I did enjoy it. It's actually a fun movie. It's got some really nice stuff in it, and I would recommend it. Actually, I would think it's if you want a pretty cool action movie that's not really going to surprise you, but will entertain you. I think so. Sure. Yeah, I would recommend it on that basis, as long as you're not going in thinking, oh, this is Mission Impossible standards.
Yeah, sure.
Because it's not that good. But it's good enough and it's entertaining enough.
Okay, well that's something. I guess these actors have been paid for multi-picture deals, have they?
I would presume so.
Because Gal was in Red Notice as well, wasn't she? And now she's in this, and I know that The Rock's got a movie coming out with Netflix again. So I'm like, did they just all get offered multi-picture deals or something?
I imagine so.
But yeah, cool.
I think most of those aren't going anywhere.
No, I would imagine not.
I can't imagine Red. I mean, I think it was a lot of people watched it, but Red Notice was terrible.
I've watched it, and I can't honestly remember whether I liked it or not. I can tell you that I've forgotten everything about it, like everything about it. I genuinely don't remember. I know it's got Ryan Reynolds in it, and I know he was being Ryan Reynolds, and The Rock was being The Rock, and Gal Gadot was being Gal Gadot. I don't. Yeah, I genuinely. It's a heist movie, and they steal a thing and they're all playing off against each other.
Yeah.
That's about all I genuinely have forgotten most of that film, and I only watched it like last year, I think. So, forgettable. I'd be very surprised if they make a sequel to that. So maybe this is their idea. They're like, well, actually, let's put you in something else. Get our money's worth.
I'm guessing. I'm guessing they're all they've just got contracts with them that they'll put them in whatever they think will. A suitable vehicle for them, I guess.
What was the Highlander-esque one that they did? That was quite fun.
The Old Guard.
Yes.
Charlize Theron again.
Quite enjoyed that.
Yeah, that had some really stupid stuff in it, but again,
it did, but it was fun.
Really enjoyable.
I'm surprised they haven't done more of that, but
yeah, I think that was. I think it. I think a lot of people again watched it, so you would. I mean, it certainly it left itself for a sequel. They had a definite sequel bait, and it was clearly made as a franchise.
Yes,
and it did have some lovely moments in it, actually. It was some nice little bits, and Charlize Theron is great. I mean, I think she's a bit of a nutter in real life, which just, I guess, adds to it, but sure.
Actors.
Yeah, I would.
Hollywood actors.
I'd watch a sequel to that.
Yeah,
it had some nice stuff in it.
Well, the only other thing I've seen that I remember, because I do have this horrible nagging feeling that I've watched something else, but I cannot remember for the life of me what it was. So it can't have been.
It must have been great then.
Anything memorable. The other film that I remember seeing in the last 2 weeks was Babylon 5: The Road Home.
Oh wow! Okay.
The animated sequel spin-off to Babylon 5, one of my favorite science fiction shows of all time. Grew up and was a big fan of Babylon 5 in the 90s. It was probably my favorite show back in the day.
Babylon 5 many a time.
Yes, I mean, I return to it annually. I love Babylon 5. My personal opinion on Babylon 5 is that the show itself, I mean, season 1's a little bit ropey. Season 5's a little bit ropey. There are some great episodes in those seasons, but seasons 2 to 4, some of the best science fiction ever written. And in my opinion,
some of the best science fiction, sci-fi character work in any show.
Yes, absolutely. I would say, though, unfortunately, after Babylon 5, almost everything after that didn't really work for me. I thought Crusade was okay, might have got better. I don't know.
I was going to say, I think Crusade would have found its feet.
I feel like if it had another season, I probably would have ended up liking it a lot more. The movies were okay. Legend of the Rangers was terrible. Lost Tales was just dull and pointless. Sorry?
I like Third Space.
Yes, the movies were okay. Third Space was great. In the Beginning was great. There was that awful one, River of Souls. That's terrible.
I kind of like River of Souls. No, I know it's bad.
With Michael Sheen.
I kind of like it.
It's bad. I think so.
Martin
Sheen. Sorry, not Michael. Martin Sheen. Yes.
Got Martin Sheen as
a soul hunter. It's so bad, dude.
Martin Sheen, who has been in a lot of sort of sci-fi type movies and always looks as if he has no idea what he's doing.
Yeah, he does, doesn't he? It's weird. For someone that does so much science fiction, he often looks like he doesn't have a fucking clue what's going on.
Not a clue. He certainly doesn't that. He just... I mean, there's... he's the bad guy in Spawn.
Yeah, no, I love him in Spawn. And that's one of my favourite performances of his, because he genuinely is like, what have I signed up to be in?
He's chewing... The thing is, he clearly doesn't know what this movie is.
To be honest, and I will say this, I love Spawn. I loved Spawn, the comics. I loved them. Yeah. That movie is fucking terrible, and I do not.
I love it.
Me too. I love it, but it's awful.
And the thing I love about his performance in that movie is he clearly has no idea what the movie is. He has no idea.
He's like, oh, it's a comic.
But they've basically just gone, you're the villain. You're a comic book villain. And he's just gone, I know how to do that, so I will just eat the entire scenery. That's fine.
Amazing.
It's so good.
So anyway, they announced that they were going to do a reboot of Babylon 5, and I was like, oh god, you're going to probably ruin it. But, J. Michael Straczynski was on board, and I was like, okay, maybe. I'm still very, very nervous about them doing it. But
alarm bells, but there were a lot of sort of hopeful...
Yes, and...
glimmers.
To be fair... I'm past the point of giving a shit anymore. Like most of the things I like, because they've done it to everything now. So I'm like, I guess it's inevitable that Babylon 5 will probably get a shitty remake at some point. I mean, hey, it could end up being a Battlestar Galactica, but I doubt it.
Yes.
But, I will give it a go. However, they then said, we're coming out with this animated movie, Babylon 5, The Road Home. It's a tribute to Babylon 5 of the 90s, bringing back all of the cast that are alive and paying tribute to the cast members that are deceased. Unfortunately, most of the cast members of Babylon 5 have passed away over the years.
Yeah.
One of the worst franchises for it, actually.
One of the things I was going to ask is, what are the replacement voices like?
Interesting. They are. I mean, the thing is, I'm so used to hearing the voices of the original actors that I find it very difficult to switch that off.
They were all really good voice actors as well,
and very distinctive.
Those voices in other cartoons and things.
Yeah, and they're very distinctive voices. I would say they certainly don't nail the voices entirely, but they certainly are in the spirit of the character to where it didn't bother me. Like, okay. I was like, okay, they're clearly playing that character, even if the voice is slightly off. Like
Delenn and Jakar are probably the voices that would be most recognizable, and
yes,
I would say hard to pull off.
Yeah, I would agree. Especially Delenn. I mean, she had such a distinctive voice.
Garibaldi, you can.
Garibaldi sounds very generic in this, but yeah, he's fine.
Yeah, gruff sort of Bruce Willis character. That's kind of what you need for them.
Yeah.
Someone who's got like the accents that they had in that Mira Furlan and Andres Katsula had.
Yeah. I think they are fine in the replacement, and it feels like they are in the spirit of those characters and those performances, even if they don't sound exactly the same. It didn't bother me. I was pretty concerned going into this because it's a multiverse story.
Yeah,
and I was like, I really just wanted to catch up with the people in Babylon 5 and just see where they are a few years later. Obviously, we know how Sheridan's story ends.
Yes.
We know how a lot of their stories end ultimately because Babylon 5 is one of those shows that did go and show us the distant future. But it would be nice to have a story in this universe was my argument, and doing it in a multiverse, I'm like, well, it doesn't really count then, does it? Because what happens elsewhere doesn't really bother me. But I will say, I think for what it is, I really enjoyed this. I think they did a good job. It's excuse me. It is set in season 5, and it's very. I don't know how newcomers are going to like this. I will be honest, because it feels very much in canon with the 90s show. So it does feel like it is very much that, right? So it's set towards the end of season 5. I think it might be the second to last episode of season 5, when Sheridan and Delenn leave Babylon 5 to move to Minbar, because they're going to move. He's going to be the president of the Alliance. Has been on Babylon 5 temporarily. They've now got the Interstellar Alliance set up on Minbar. He's going to Minbar, so you get a recreation of that scene and some of the stuff you didn't see from that. From that episode, effectively, it kind of opens with Sheridan talking about socks to Delenn. It's a Straczynski thing that I have noticed he does. He does this mundane talk thing a lot with his dialogue. I think it might infuriate people. I quite like it.
I like it too.
But yeah, so he's trying to find his lucky socks that he moved on board Babylon 5 with and stuff. It's very Sheridan.
That's Delenn and Sheridan, isn't it?
So... Absolutely, and that's the thing. It's like right off the bat, I'm like, okay, we're back with these characters. It fits. We get a recreation of the scene with Tracy Stoggin's character saluting, and Boxleitner saluting back, and on the White Star, and then disappearing off. They get to Minbar, and I guess it's a couple of weeks later. He's kind of settling in, and he's going to open this power plant on Minbar. He's a lot more jokey in this, actually, Sheridan. He's a bit more kind of humorous, which I quite liked. It kind of worked quite well. But he's basically going to open this power plant, and he kind of jokes about, I'd love opening, I love being like a ceremonial guy that just comes along and opens power plants and stuff. He's kind of quite sarky about it. But anyway, he gets there, and they are talking about this power plant that's going to power Minbar for generations to come with no waste and all of this stuff. And effectively, they fire it up, and Sheridan starts having flashbacks and issues, and he starts feeling pain, and he's like, what powers this? And it turns out that it's powered by tachyons. Now, in A War Without End, very specific Babylon 5 2-part episode from season 3.
Yeah.
The one when they time travel back to Babylon 4.
Yep.
All of that stuff. Sheridan gets it's a fantastic episode. It's one of the best episodes. Because they bring back Sinclair and everything in that. It's a really good. It ties everything neatly together. In that episode, Sheridan became unstuck in time. Zathras gave him this stabilizer to stabilize him, but as we saw from Sinclair ages in that episode and he's all messed up because he's gone in too many times. And it turns out that because he was affected by tachyons during that, he is affected by the tachyons of the power plant going live because they're using tachyons, and he becomes unstuck in time and space. Delenn tries to save him, but obviously can't get there in time, and he disappears and reappears 23 years into the future. And he meets old Stephen Franklin, who's like, oh, you've jumped 18 years into the future. And he does tests on him, and he basically says, like, you're out of time, you're out of phase and time, and you could end up in alternate dimensions, alternate times. Which at first I was like, does that really work? Because in the Babylon 4 episode, it was only times, not dimensions. But then I thought, well, actually, they did show Babylon 5 getting destroyed and overrun by the shadows, and Ivanova sending the emergency message. So I was like, okay, maybe it does fit that there is alternate dimensions as well. So it's well written, and it does integrate with the show. So it does work. And so he then jumps again, but not before Steven says to him, look, you need to get to Zathras. You need to get to Babylon 5, go down to the planet, and find Zathras, because obviously he's the one that gave you the stabilizer in the first place, and hopefully in whatever reality you end up in, he can do that. So then he keeps jumping around and he meets his father. We see different things. We do get to see that scene that we saw in Babylon 4, the Babylon 4 in the War Without End. We get to see that the station being overrun by the shadows, and Ivanova's last message, and Sinclair and Garibaldi, that last stand that we saw in season 1 with the Babylon 4 episode as well, because Babylon 4 comes up twice in the series. You get to see all of that, and you get to see that play out. We get to see a situation where the shadows and the Vorlons couldn't be stopped, and now the Vorlons have lost the war to the shadows, but on their way out they're going to destroy everything. So they're kind of losing the war, but as they retreat they're destroying everything. So we see the Vorlons are going to destroy Earth, and all of that sort of stuff.
Kind of greatest hits then.
It's greatest hits with it's like a big what if greatest hits, but it does make sense in the context of the show, and And it is nice in a way that we get to see these characters again, and it worked well for what it is, I think. We do get some kind of deep and meaningful towards the end, which I won't ruin. Nice scene between Sheridan and Jakar, and we get to see Lita, and we meet all of the old characters. Zathras is in it, and Zathras is fantastic. There's like a million Zathrases, which is great. Basically, they've effectively, as 2 movies that I watched with this in a row, that Spider-Verse. He's basically created a Zathras verse where there's Zathrases across the multiverse, so they all talk to each other and keep things together. So there's always a Zathras in every dimension. And obviously there's that ongoing joke that Sheridan can't bloody stand Zathras, so he's like, oh god, got to deal with Zathras, and then you find out there's like loads of them and stuff. It's really good fun, and I think it's a nice send off to the characters. It is 100% set up as a complete reboot at the end. I will say, as a it's like a spoiler-ish. Well, it is a spoiler. At the end of the movie, Sheridan goes back to his universe, as you would expect. However, the show does the movie ends with Sheridan going back. The situation gets resolved. He goes back. I won't say how that all happens, but he does. He goes back, but we don't follow him back. He goes back, and then we're stuck on this dimension. And in this dimension is Babylon 5, before the Shadow War. and there's, Delenn with the bald head, and Sheridan's already on board. So things are different. So Sheridan's already on board, but Sinclair is there, but he's like, I think, in charge of a destroyer or something. Right. So basically all the characters are there.
Is it the Agamemnon?
It might be. I don't think he says whether it's the Agamemnon or not. But Tracy Scoggins' character's there. Why am I forgetting her name? Lockley. Lockley's there, and she's working with Sinclair. So it's basically this alternate.
To be uncharitable, she is the not Susan character.
She's exactly the not Susan character. She is the, oh shit, Claudia's quit. Who do I get to replace her?
Yeah.
And the fans will not accept.
She's got some really good character moments, and she has some really good episodes.
I actually think she's great. And they
not Susan.
No, her role gets better as it goes on.
Yes.
But Claudia Christian, is back for this.
Yeah.
Which is nice as well. But yeah, so we basically end
because it's their voices. It's not so jarring when you see them, because Claudia Christian's had a lot of work done.
Yeah.
She does not look like she used to look.
No. But yeah, it's great that, but it does end on this like clean Babylon 5 where you've got Londo and Jakar bickering. It's early on in their relationship. Sheridan's already there. Delenn's there with the bald head, so it's before her, before she changes. Yeah. All of that stuff. So it's kind of a universe that's clean and reset, and I guess it does nicely pave the way, because I'm assuming they wouldn't use this universe if they were going to do another show, because it's clearly Bruce Boxleitner, and it's clearly meant to be Andreas Katsoulis, and it's clearly meant to be Mira Furlan. But they're basically saying like a universe like this exists in a mirror dimension where nothing's happened yet. So it nicely sets us up if they decide to. They're like, well, we're not erasing your timeline. That's still going on. I think it was introducing us to the idea that maybe soon this might be recast and start over again.
Yeah. I think that was one of the, when I saw the trailer for this, I was a bit sort of, oh God, it's a multiverse thing.
Yeah, me too.
And it was, but it was a sort of, okay, well, at least it's the proper characters. They're not doing,
Yeah.
So I was a bit apprehensive. I'd actually, to be fair, I'd forgotten it was out. I hadn't realised it was out yet.
I'd set a reminder because I'm a big Babylon 5 fan, and I was like, I want to see this when it comes out regardless. So I'd kind of
apprehensive. So I'm glad you've seen it now, because
it's worth a watch for sure.
I will definitely watch it now.
I think it works. The story works as well as any multiverse thing can work. I like that they tied it back to Babylon 4. I really wonder how. I would recommend, if you want to watch this, I would watch Babylon 5 first.
And what, to people who haven't seen Babylon 5?
Yeah, because I just don't know. You wouldn't know what the fuck was going on.
I mean, I was going to say, how bad is that?
Well, it is referencing very specific episodes and lore from Babylon 5. It really is a love letter to the fans of Babylon 5. I think, really. You could probably watch it as just as a one-off thing, but I think it's more for the fans. Ironically, the animated CGI looks better than the actual CGI from the show, obviously. Like the space battles and stuff in this are like, whoa, it looks amazing.
The animation was pretty good then.
It was. I didn't like it in the trailer, but when I saw the whole thing, I was like, no, actually, it's fine. It works. But yeah, you kind of get to see a bit more. You get to see a lot more detail. Like the shadows look really evil now. The shadow ships look super organic and evil, and you can kind of see what they intended to do in the 90s but couldn't pull off with the technology they had. So all of that's kind of fun. But
I think the shadows were always done quite well though, because the fact that most of the time you couldn't see them properly, I think, worked.
Oh yeah, no, the shadow creatures I think actually look better in the show than they do in this. They've given them like red eyes and they look a bit weird in this.
Okay.
But the ships look cool in this. The ships look like they're straight out of Lovecraft now.
Oh, cool.
And it does look quite cool. It's quite a cool design. So I think it's like, this is what we would have done if we had the budget and the means in the 90s, But yeah, it's good fun. I certainly recommend it to Babylon 5 fans, and it is what it is, but it's fine for what it is. So.
Oh, cool.
So what else have you watched?
So I have also watched. Find my things. Where is it? It is.
I can tell you what you've watched if you want. I was only asking as a courtesy. I have it written down.
No hard feelings.
No hard feelings.
I don't know what it is about this. The title, for some reason,
it's very generic.
Will not grab onto it.
It's extremely generic.
It's a terrible title.
It is. So, it sounds like a Lifetime movie or something.
Yeah.
That's like the title.
This is not a Lifetime movie.
No, I'm sure it's not, but it's title alone. I know nothing about it.
It's awful. It's a really bad title. I wish they would have found something different because my brain refuses to fucking latch onto it. So
anyway,
no hard feelings. So it's Jennifer Lawrence. You got Matthew Broderick in it. Laura Benanti. Natalie Morales. I love Natalie Morales. Natalie Morales was in an amazing series that like nobody watched, and I, for the life of me, cannot remember what it was called now.
What happens in it?
Sorry.
What happens in it?
They're like sort of spidey, sort of secret agency, sort of weird secret organization.
Okay.
It was based on a comic, I'm pretty sure.
Who was it that you were saying?
Natalie Morales.
Hang on, I'll look
it Middleman.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, I'm aware of it. I haven't seen it.
Sort of weirdy, sort of 60s, sort of spy stuff.
Yeah.
And it was really fun and really wacky, and like very few people saw it, so it basically tanked and didn't, go anywhere. But she's great in it, and she's only a minor character in this, but she's great anyway. So basically, we're introduced to Maddie Barker, who is a how do we describe her character? She's a bit of a cow. Let's put it that way. So it starts off with a tow truck coming to repossess her car, and she comes out, and it turns the guy who's driving the tow truck is an ex-boyfriend. Who she clearly just stopped calling. She's trying her best to get round him, and is like, no, I need this car. I'm an Uber driver. And I still love you. And he's like, really? And he's like, of course I still love you. And then this like naked Italian guy walks out of the house and starts stretching on the lawn. And it's like, oh yeah, of course you love him. Brilliant. So then basically, you find out that she's a bit of a disaster. Her life's a bit of a disaster. She lives in this town that's, I'm not sure where it actually is, but it's like Amity Island.
Okay.
In that she lives there, but it's a seasonal town. So, during the summer, all the Richies come and, take over the town, and she hates that, but that's how she makes her money for the, she's an Uber driver in the summer, and that's how she makes her money. But you also discover that she's going to lose her house that her mother left her. So she's working another job as a bartender, and she needs to make money quick, otherwise she's going to lose her house. So she sees this post for from this couple who will give you a car if you date their son. And when I say date, I mean date. Hard date.
That's not creepy at all.
Yeah, exactly. Apparently, it was based on a real post.
Oh,
I'm not
God.
sure how true that is.
Well, the truth is, they're like most of these true quote unquote stories, it's probably like someone posted on Craigslist once. That's the truth.
Yes, exactly. So she goes to see these parents, played by Matthew Broderick and Laura Benanti.
Right.
And they're obviously they're a very rich family, and they're you understand what's going on. And she's like, yeah, sure, I can do this. So she says, but you have to not tell him that we're paying.
You're doing this for a car. No, exactly. That's not going to go down well, is it?
You've got to, date him organically, and it's like, okay, what does he do? So this basically, he's 17, but he doesn't really leave his house.
Right.
Doesn't really have any friends. He's kind of scared of everything, and the only thing he sort of does is, well, not sort of. The only sort of thing he leaves kind of the house for is he works at a dog shelter,
right?
Where he helps with these dogs that have been sort of damaged, or there's one particular dog who they've got who is an ex-drug dog who became addicted and goes mental when you mention cocaine.
Okay.
So she then basically goes, tarts herself up and goes to, oh, I'm here for a dog. And it's clearly not suitable for a dog at all, which he clearly sort of comes away saying, not sure you're really suitable for a dog. And she's like, sure, I'm good with dogs. She goes, hey, would you like to sort of go out? And there's this, basically, they end up sort of, he goes with her in this van she's borrowed, right? Which has got, in the back of it, it's got like tools and machetes hanging from it, because the guy it's a fisherman's van, and it's got fisherman's accoutrement, like small cages and nets and things in it. And of course, he's increasingly getting like, this is weird. I think this woman's gonna do terrible things to me. And she's supposed to be giving him a lift home. Clearly, she's going to her house. And when they get there, he basically maces her. So obviously, stuff happens.
It's a good start.
Yeah, exactly. She sort of, she persuades him that she wasn't going to do terrible things to him, and she just fancied him, and she thought he was lovely. And then obviously, it goes out from there. There's dates and things, and people coming in, and
they actually fall in love.
Incidences. Well, I mean, yes, sort of, kind of. What I like about this is it.
Well, I mean, if it was a Hallmark movie, they'd definitely fall in love.
Oh yeah. It's not that,
and it would be set at Christmas, but that's
There's one brilliant scene, which I am not going to spoil.
Okay.
I thought it was absolutely brilliant, and all I'll say is, from what I gather, she did her own stunts.
Stunts.
Take that how you will.
Yeah, I'm curious now. This doesn't strike me as a stunt-heavy movie. Did she really get maced? Just do it for real. It'll be fine. I'm a method actor.
In the context of, I don't want to spoil the scene, so all I'll say is I'll put it that way, and you can make of that.
No, that's fine. You have piqued my curiosity.
What I love about this is it feels like an old-fashioned comedy movie. It feels like one of those sort of, early 90s, late 80s sort of over-the-top farces, where, yes, it's ridiculous. Yes, there are stupid, dumb shit in it. But it's actually got a lot of heart. It's genuinely funny. The kid, Andrew Barth Fieldman, the kid who plays Percy, he's such a dweeb, but he's so sweet, and you really feel for this kid. The other, the sort of the other performers are great as well. Even though they're minor things. I think Jennifer Lawrence is, again, she said some stupid shit in real life, and
actors.
Yeah, exactly. Actors.
It's just, well, particularly Hollywood actors.
I've seen her in a lot of interviews and a lot of on a lot of shows where she's just herself, and I think herself, when she's not prompted to say stupid shit, is genuinely funny and genuinely sweet. And that, even though
you should all stop listening to your publicists immediately.
Yes. Oh god, yeah.
Just be yourselves.
Even though her character at times is really morally broken, she is actually, at her core, sweet and funny. And
I mean, regardless of her as a person, I don't know any of these celebrities. They could be lovely or they could be awful. I like her as an actress. I think she's pretty good.
Exactly, she's a great actress, and she's certainly got comedy chops. She is really funny in this. Okay, I will point out that I started watching this with my wife. She got 20 minutes in and was like, "Yeah, I'm done," and she walked away.
Oh no!
My wife doesn't like cringy humor, and I'm not the biggest fan of cringy humor.
I like it.
Some of the stuff like The American Office, like, does my head in.
Right.
But for me, this really worked. I think I would recommend it to anybody who likes good old fashioned, over the top comedies. With a sort of sweet core to it. And I really liked it. I really found it fun. I really found it funny. Jennifer Lawrence is brilliant. The rest of the cast is great. Like I said, the kid was really cool. And it ends with a sort of, I mean, you can sort of see it coming, but it's not as saccharine as like a Hallmark movie is.
Yeah.
So I think the end is actually very satisfying. It's got a very nice, and obviously, it'll have the beats. Obviously, things will go wrong. He will find out. That's not, no one's going to be surprised by that. That's what the story is just going to go. But I think what they do with it is worked really well for me, and I think it worked well for the movie. And I liked it a lot. It's really fun, really funny, and I would highly recommend it.
Cool. That sounds fun. You've piqued my interest with these stunts.
Yes.
But
honestly, it's a really fucking brilliant scene. I mean, some people might not find it as funny as I do. Certainly not. Humor is relative and everything, but that scene in particular, I laughed my head off. It was just brilliant. It really did it for me anyway.
Cool. Well, I'm really glad you watched No Hard Feelings and Heart of Stone. Otherwise, this would have been an entirely animated-based episode of The Movies Made Us Do It.
That's true.
So, would you like to do your last film?
I will. So, I have also seen Monkey King.
Monkey King, an animated adaptation.
Yes, and this is the latest Netflix version of Monkey King, starring. This is going to be one of those ones where I get terrible. Jimmy O Yang is the voice of Monkey King, which is good. Jolie Huang Rappaport, Bowen Yang, Joy Ko, and you've got D.B. Wong, which is actually, this is quite funny because D.B. Wong is also in Heart of Stone as well, which kind of made me laugh.
Yeah.
So basically, it's the story of the Monkey King, and it's early Monkey King. So it's you see him from his birth from the stone egg, from being this the stone monkey, to him getting the staff, and his sort of self-quest to become, immortal and better than the gods. And along the way, he, stumbles across a girl who is trying to save her village. So the Monkey King gets do you know the story of Monkey very, very well?
Not terribly well, no.
Did you ever watch Monkey, the 70s?
Yeah.
Because
I watched.
I think we discussed it the other day when we were talking about.
We did. Yeah.
I fucking love Monkey.
So I didn't watch like loads of it. I've watched some of it.
I love Monkey, and I love.
Enjoyed it, but
Journey to the West is one of those things I love anyway, and I've seen many versions of the Monkey King.
Mm-hmm.
Some great ones to some utterly appalling ones. Basically, the story, the gist is Monkey. He was born from this stone egg. He becomes this sort of king of the monkeys, and he decides that he's gonna be an immortal, and he goes to heaven, and all this stuff, and then basically from there he gets punished, and he's put in a mountain for 500 years or 1,000 years, I think, one day, and eventually he's released to go on the journey to the west with. I never remember the actual name, so I'm going to use the names they use in Monkey. So he's becomes the bodyguard of Tripitaka, the priest, and Pixie and Sandy. So you've got all that sort of stuff. So his staff is a tidal marker in the ocean, and in this version, I think in most versions it probably belongs to the Dragon King, but in this version specifically, it belongs to the Dragon King, who basically is sick of the upper world, and he's going to use this staff to destroy the human world, basically. But Monkey gets there because he wants a decent weapon that is deserving of him, and when he gets to the staff, it talks to him. Right. Now, I think the staff usually has a degree of sentience anyway, but I don't remember it ever talking to him.
Sure.
And you don't hit it. It doesn't. It's not you can't understand it. It makes these noises, and Monkey.
Yeah, it's not like the voice of Pee Wee Herman or something. Just starts talking. It
makes this sort of humming sound, and it lights up, which actually. Initially, I was like, "Oh, that's fucking awful," but I got used to it really quickly, and it works quite well.
Okay.
It's really odd that he keeps having conversations with the staff, but okay. So he, not really spoiling anything, he goes off with this staff. The Dragon King is utterly pissed off that his weapon's been stolen, and his plans for like world domination have been shattered. So he do I spoil stuff? Well, he basically, the Monkey King, to become an immortal, there are certain things he realizes he must do. He must become visible to heaven. So he decides to beat 1,000 demons or 100 demons or whatever it is. So you get a brief sort of, they cut that down. There's a brief thing where he goes off and he fights 100 demons, defeats 100 demons, and then he gets this sort of assistant, and he realizes that, right, so he has to go to the underworld to cross his name off so that he can be immortal, but he's only half immortal, and blah 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 blah. I'm not going to sort of spoil it. Other than there's some sort of weird changes. For instance, he's sort of rejected by the other monkeys, which was weird. The other monkeys are like, oh, there are rules, and we have to abide by these rules, and you don't go out into the sunlight, and this demon will take you, and you're clearly not one of us. So he even gets shunned by the monkeys, which I thought was odd. But they've set it up as this is part of his thing that
sure
he needs to overcome this sort of find a family sort of thing, and this girl sort of who becomes his assistant, she helps him, and she hinders him, and there's that sort of that stuff going on. I'm not quite sure why they made the Dragon King a bad guy either, but for the purposes of this, it works. I think he's quite funny. He gets a musical number, which was okay, fine. Again, it sort of worked for the character they were using. For the most part, I think the animation was actually quite beautiful. I liked most of the character designs. Some of the designs were a bit weird. The design for Buddha I thought was a bit odd, but okay, it sort of worked, but it was a bit weird. The spoiling slightly, when the Dragon King goes kaiju mode, he's massively overweight and sort of fat, and it was a bit of an odd choice. But sure, okay. I liked it. I really enjoyed it. It's fun. It's got a nice message of there's this point that they keep saying, like, first off, it's made by the the head monkey who says, "You are a pebble. See this hand? This is like the universe, and you're this pebble. You're a very small part of this universe, and you don't matter." But obviously it's like the overall message is even a small pebble can make a difference. So it's actually it doesn't have any of the sort of, I think a lot of the sort of Netflix cartoons in the recent years have had some fucking dubious messaging that has pissed me off. This one, thankfully, doesn't have that. It just has if you put yourself out there, you do the right thing, you can make a difference. It is possible to make a difference, and I like that. It was cool, and the voices were great. The performances were really fun. The Monkey King is just the right side of annoying for me, anyway. I think some people found him too annoying, but I think Monkey is annoying. He's disruptive. He's uncouth. He has this journey where he goes from being this annoying brat to being a considered person, as it were.
Yeah. Character growth.
Exactly, and this only encompasses up to where he's punished, basically.
Right. So do you think they're going to do more?
So I hope so. I would happily watch a sequel with them going on the journey to get the scrolls from India.
Yeah.
I would I also think that I would recommend this movie, and I would recommend it to actual kids. I think some of the movies I've seen for kids recently, I wouldn't recommend for kids, because sometimes some of the messaging I think is not appropriate. This one I think was just perfect for kids. I think it's great. It's fun, and Monkey's got the right amount of brashness that I think kids will love.
Yeah. Ah, cool.
It had real heart, and I really liked it. I thought it was really well done, and it's for the most part really pretty.
Yeah,
and a nice version of the Monkey King. There are lots out there.
Yes,
I think Netflix themselves have done 2 or 3 themselves. I think there's an Australian one which is a sort of modernish interpretation, which I haven't actually seen, but I've seen clips from which looked okay, but I didn't give it a go in the end. But this one I thought, hey, I love Monkey, and I like the Journey to the West.
Yeah.
So I gave it a go, and it's worth it. It is worth your time. It's fun.
Excellent. Well, a very animated based movies made us do it today.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you would like to talk about?
I think only really the
Rebel fucking Moon.
Moon trailer.
So the trailer for Rebel Moon, Zack Snyder's Star Wars, I guess.
Yes, well, it was literally a Star Wars.
Well, was it?
Post.
He says that, but it looks like he was initially thinking Star Wars, but then he saw Dune, and then he saw Seven Samurai, and then he saw fucking John Carter, and then he just he's like basically like as I find the more I see of Zack Snyder's stuff, he just likes smashing toys together, and that's kind of what this looked like. I mean, don't get me wrong, some of this looks really cool, and I'm kind of intrigued, but like it is just like a kid's written something based on all the things they like at the time, and just smashed them all together.
That is true.
I don't, and I'm not necessarily saying that's even a bad thing, because I am quite looking forward to it. But
if this was his Star Wars pitch, how different would it have been? Because
that's what I'm curious about, right? So I guess when we see it, we'll see how Star Wars-y it is, because I didn't get like masses of Star Wars from this trailer. I got like 25% Star Wars, 25% Dune, 25% John Carter, 25% Seven Samurai. It was like, and I know obviously, Kurosawa and Star Wars are kind of linked anyway, so that's kind of it's a fair thing. It looks interesting. I mean, Snyder's love of CGI continues. I think some of the visual effects in this trailer look amazing. Some of them look quite ropey. So
Yeah, there was one or two shots, which maybe they'll alter later.
Yes, quite possibly.
Just, because when's it coming out? Is it November?
There's 2 parts, isn't there? I think the first part is November, and then the next part is next year, right?
Yeah.
So
it's got a great bloody cast.
It does have a fantastic cast. It looks fine. I mean, it does look fine.
Charlie Hunnam, Carrie Elwes, Jenna Malone, Anthony Hopkins, which was like,
is
I don't
he
know
just
how much
narrating?
He's just the narrator.
Yeah, I was wondering that. I was like, is he just narrating, or is he actually in this?
Duna Bay, Jamon Hunsu, great. Ed Skrin or Skirin. There's a name that I never quite know how.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm never sure. It looks fine. I'm curious. I will definitely watch it. He has already warned us that he's going to do a Snyder cut.
Yeah, I know. That was
a whole extra hour. I'm like, God, man, are you capable of doing?
Help against his haters already. It's like, oh, please don't say that, because it's all you're already, helping to bury
it's his
your own
thing
movie.
now, isn't it? I
Stop
know
it.
It's like his thing now. I the thing is, I'm fine with long movies. I like long movies. We've discussed this before.
Yeah.
Right.
If
you have a story to tell.
What? Yeah.
But he does have this habit of making overly long, pointless things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I am worried. I have this horrible feeling that I will probably end up preferring the Netflix cut to the Snyder cut, which will have a load of added nonsense in it.
I mean, yeah, but having said that, the Snyder cut of Thingy is miles better.
Oh, it is better, but it's overlong.
I mean, you can cut off the end.
You can cut off a lot, but it is a better cut. I'll give you that. But that's a low bar.
I think
that had interference
like
and was
more than a lot of people. I've got a lot of time for Snyder.
I think he's great as a visual director. I think
there are not problems with him, and he hasn't done terrible things. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I personally love a lot of his stuff.
Yeah, and that's cool, man. And I'm up for this movie. I
like the trailer. I thought.
I like the trailer. I was like, wow, it does have that feel of a 14-year-old's first script.
Yes.
I don't know who wrote this. Did he write it?
Probably.
I'm guessing he was heavily involved.
Kurt Johnstad and Zack Snyder.
Okay, so it was a team of writers.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks cool. I'm intrigued. It's obviously neither of us bother with Star Wars anymore. So hey, if you're going to start something cool in a science fiction universe,
I think that's what I hope. That's the thing that I hope. There's a lot of alarm bells on it. There are a lot of stuff that
there's certainly enough there that I want to watch it.
Exactly, and I'm hopeful is that it is good, and we will get a nice new shiny franchise that's worth bloody watching.
A nice science fiction franchise would be fun.
Yes, because it's not like the desire for these things have gone away.
No, I love science fiction.
It's not like
just I like good stuff.
Want to see good sci-fi stuff because we do. Everybody not everybody. Everybody who loves Star Wars and who loves Star Trek want to see good sci-fi shows,
Yeah. I mean, if it works, it works. I mean, Netflix have put a lot of money into this. I mean, they're releasing 2 movies.
Yeah.
They've signed off on 2 immediately. I mean, they must have there's a lot of confidence.
Not that means very much because they put a lot of money into a lot of movies that have been terrible.
That's true. It's just these clearly are not cheap. And to have made 2 in a row without seeing how popular the first one was first is like, wow, you're going all in with Zack Snyder here, And I mean, I know they again, he has multi-picture deals, right? Because obviously we had the Army of the Dead or whatever it was called.
Yeah.
So is he going to continue with that? Because that was going to be a universe thing as well, wasn't it?
I don't think so.
Yeah. I guess maybe that wasn't as popular.
A lot of people watched it, but I think it got a lot of negative.
Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of it.
I mean, it's a rubbish film, but I did enjoy it.
I enjoyed parts of it.
There was a lot that was really funny.
I still haven't watched that heist movie, the prequel.
I actually really, again,
It sounds like it might be a better film, but
I really enjoyed it. I like the character of Dieter. I guess it's whether you like the character of Dieter or not. I actually really enjoyed it. I thought it was quite fun as a sort of slightly naff heist movie. I mean, I would recommend that if you want to see a pretty semi-decent heist movie.
Yeah.
I'm so hopeful for it.
I'm hopeful.
I've got more love of Zack Snyder than most people have.
You certainly have more than me.
I'm a little more.
But I'm not close to this. I think the trailer looks fine. I my cynicism aside, it looks fine. It's certainly wearing its inspirations on its chest, loud and proud. I would say. But let's see what happens. I mean, I'm certainly going to give it a go.
It can certainly be, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of June, that's been knocked back, hasn't it?
Has it?
Yeah, it's not coming out till next year now.
Oh my god, what am I going to do, Matt? I've got to find 5 movies I liked this year at the end of the year.
Do you know what? I was thinking that the other day. I was thinking, oh, this year's going to be one of those.
Top 5's going to be a low bar this year.
Yeah. I mean, we have seen good movies this year. So
I've seen some good movies. Talk to Me will be in my top 5 right now.
I've got to see that because I've got a feeling that one might make my top 5.
I really enjoyed it, but there have been good films. I'm just like, I think Dune 2 was the big movie this year that I was like, oh, okay. I mean, obviously now I've got Godzilla -1 as well.
Yes,
which will certainly
pique
my interest. But
I think I think a lot of things being knocked back in it because I think because nobody can bloody
they can't reshoot if it's an American film, can they? So
yeah, but they
or
can
promote for that matter.
That's it. No one can promote, and I love like today and yesterday and things when I was looking up news items for today. I love like when you read an article and they make it clear. This article was done before the thing. Everything that they said was before the thing, so you can't, don't shout at us because it was all done before then, and the opinions were made before the strike. And
I will say,
every article I was looking at was all started with that disclaimer. It was just hilarious.
Is it just me? I don't know if it's just me, but I honestly feel like honestly, if the reason they're not releasing movies, if it's reshoots, I understand. That's a problem. If it's promotion, honestly, with how thick some of these actors are and celebrities are, I think it would be a positive if you didn't have them talk before the movie came out.
Yeah, I mean,
like genuinely,
just
release the fucking movie. And don't let them talk, and I think more people might see your movie because they're not doing any favors for anyone right now. When they seem to open their mouths these days, like I don't know if it's the publicist telling them to say stuff or what, but my God, some of the stupid things that people say.
Last week, or the week before, maybe we were talking about Tom Cruise. What Tom Cruise said. If you've already
that you should do promotion for a movie that you've been paid for. Yeah, 100% agree with that. That's crazy to me. It's like, no, you've taken the money for that already. Like, you should definitely do that. That's
you're promoting something that's already
you've been paid for. You were paid for the movie and the press, right?
Yeah.
So to not do that, it's like, well, you haven't. Should you be paid then? I don't know. Don't know how that works. I mean, maybe they get paid for the promotion separately, in which case that's a fair argument. But certainly the way that Tom Cruise put it, it sounded like no, you've kind of been paid to do the promotion as well as make the movie. So yeah, I don't know, but it's interesting, and like I said, it opens the way for films from other countries.
Yep,
we got great British cinema. We got Australian as we had with Talk to Me. We've got Korea are just knocking it out of the park with almost everything they produce these days. Yep. European movies. So there's plenty of stuff, going on. Found some real gems during COVID, so I've no doubt that we can do the same next year.
During COVID, things appeared during COVID.
Well, there's always movies being made.
Movies Hollywood, in their back garden.
As much as Hollywood would like to think it's the only thing in the world, it's not. There's plenty of other stuff. So, it's fine. But speaking of movies, what are we going to do next time?
So, this week, I will give you two choices.
Ooh.
Two very different movies.
Oh, okay.
So, With Nell and I.
Nice.
Or Wings of Desire.
Oh, they are very different. You're not wrong. Well, we probably need to do both at some point.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm assuming I will definitely do both.
So both are on the list.
Yeah. Depends whether you want a mental comedy or a
crazy fantasy movie
or beautiful movie.
Yeah. I am leaning towards Wings of Desire.
Yeah.
Purely because Wayne's World is still near to me. And I kind of feel like we did comedy recently, so doing another comedy this soon might be a bit... I don't know if you feel that way.
No, I'm fine with that.
But I definitely want to do With Nell and I, obviously.
I love both of these movies, so,
But yeah, let's do that.
Wings of Desire it is.
Wings of Desire. We will be back next week with Wings of Desire as I hit my microphone with my hand. Yes, until then, stay safe, take care, and we will catch you next time.